younger. He's back in high school, like we've never seen that. But at least from what we understand. Hey there guys, what's going on? Tyler here with your Movie Fix, and today we're going to be going over some movie news, some castings, and just general things going on in the world of movies right now. And let's start with this first story that coming out of CinemaCon in Las Vegas. We now have the official title for the next Spider-Man movie, which is confirmed to be SpiderMan Homecoming. We also were given like a title card with a logo. I'm not so sure how I feel about this logo. It looks a little cartoony, a little childish, but that doesn't have to be a direct reflection of what the movie is going to be. So let's talk about that title. I think this is the lesser of all evils. There was like a week or two, there was a list of titles that came out like this, and this was the best one out of that list. Now, I don't think this is an awful title by any means, and it could mean a couple of things about Spider-Man having his homecoming, going back to Marvel. He's not really back with Marvel. Marvel and Sony had their deal, but we have a Spider-Man now in the Avengers universe. This is the first time that it's happened, and we're now getting this. We're going back to a Spider-Man in high school, and this story could also revolve around his homecoming dance, which I'm not so sure how I feel about that. I don't know really how I feel about going back to the high school Peter Parker, but if that's what needs to be done for the Marvel Cinematic Universe, for this particular version of Spider-Man to work, then by all means do it. If it's what's best for the story, go ahead and do it. We will see an older Peter Parker with no doubt in the future movies, so that's fine. We definitely could have ended up with a far worse title than this, so it's not the end of the world. And this is actually the first Spider-Man title where we have a subtitle in it. We've had Spider-Man 1, 2, and 3, and Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2. I know a lot of people would have preferred something like the Spectacular Spider-Man. I just think that would have been a little too or a little gimmicky after just having a franchise called the Amazing Spider-Man. So I have no doubt we'll see something like that later down the road. But we've also got a little bit of rumor coming out of this movie with some casting. Variety is reporting that Michael Keaton is actually in talks to play a villain in the new Spider-Man movie. And the rumor is that he's going to be Vulture. This is funny for a couple of reasons. Now, if you don't know about Vulture, Vulture is one of the first villains that Spider-Man actually encounters. He was an inventor. He came up with this weird wing harness that gave him the power to fly and superhuman strength and sometimes like an extended life. So he's a very kooky older man. Has this vendetta against Spider-Man. And if it is Vulture, and if it is Michael Keaton, that is just so funny to me. If you aren't aware, Michael Keaton was starred in this awesome movie called Birdman last year, 2014. Absolutely love that movie. I adore that movie. I adore Michael Keaton. But if he is Birdman in Spider-Man, that's just going to be so funny. And what I find really funny about Birdman to begin with is that that movie is almost a reflection of Michael Keaton's career and the fact that it's a story about this washed-up actor, which Michael Keaton is not washed up. He's not considered a bad actor, but he's in the movie, he's a washed-up actor who was known for being Birdman in just these blockbuster movies, or like Michael Keaton, he's known for being Batman. So it'd just be really funny if we get Michael Keaton playing Birdman and Spider-Man. But regardless, Michael Keaton being involved, even if he is in some kind of negotiations, if that's the talent they're looking for, I'm on board. I'd love to see Michael Keaton in the movie. Whether or not he's actually Vulture, I think that's just kind of a rumor that's been running because of Birdman. But he could be Norman Osborn, a new Doc Ock. He could be anybody. He could be goddamn Uncle Ben, for all we know. So it really doesn't matter. But I'm on board with Michael Keaton, and I'm pretty okay with the Spider-Man Homecoming title. Now moving on with some more casting news, we go to Kingsman: The Golden Circle. It has now been confirmed that Channing Tatum is going to be starring in the movie. We've got a couple little bits of concept art and some more casting, like Halle Berry and Julianne Moore are in the movie. And if you aren't aware, they're basically going to be introducing the Statesmen, which are the American equivalent of the Kingsmen, and they operate out of a whiskey distillery instead of a haberdashery like the Kingsmen do. So that's just hilarious to begin with. I was a ginormous fan of the first Kingsman. I love what Matthew Vaughn did. And having Taron Egerton and Channing Tatum in a movie, I mean, so many ovaries are just going to explode, and it's going to be a big mess. But I'm very on board with having Channing Tatum in this movie. I loved him in the 21 Jump Street movies. I think he's definitely come a long way as an actor, for sure. I actually really enjoyed his really small role in The Hateful Eight. And he has been doing some other movies, like Foxcatcher. He has proven acting chops. He can do, character pieces. He can be an actor. I know he has kind of a bad rep among a lot of guys, but I think a lot of that stems from some kind of weird suppressed jealousy, because he's not a bad actor by any means, and he's actually a pretty likable guy, so I'm on board with him being in the movie. I have a feeling he was going to be one of the statesmen, having this experienced American statesman working with Taron Egerton, Eggsy. That's going to be phenomenal. I'm sure they're going to have a great chemistry, and I'm really going to enjoy seeing Channing Tatum in this movie directed by Matthew Vaughn. That's going to be so much fun. Now, continuing on with the trend of movie castings, there's just been a lot of things happening recently. It is Deadline now reporting that we have a frontrunner to play our new young Han Solo, who is Alden Ehrenreich. I don't know too much about him. I know the last movie that he really starred in was Hail Caesar. I watched some clips of it. He seems like a fine actor. I don't think he's a bad actor, but I haven't seen too much of his work to really judge him. But here's what I think is an important thing with casting this young Han Solo. I was not really on board with the movie in general. I don't like the idea of doing a Han Solo movie without Harrison Ford. I don't even know how the public is really going to receive that. But I think one thing that is important if you are going to do it, and hearing that this guy might be the front runner makes me a little more excited for the movie, because I think if you're going to have another person play Han Solo, it has to be an unknown actor. He can't be somebody so known to the public, regardless of whatever big movies or acclaimed movies this guy has been in. He's not a known name. I don't know this guy. And he actually has a pretty good resemblance to a younger Harrison Ford, so that's actually a big help. He looks like Harrison Ford. He has some acting chops, but nobody really knows who this guy is, and I think that is extremely important that they get an unknown. Continue with the Star Wars trend of getting unknown actors, even though, Harrison Ford, Alec Guinness, that's another story. That's kind of more of a thing to give credibility to what Star Wars was. But, Mark Hamill, Carrie Fisher, Daisy Ridley, get these unknown actors if you're going to turn them into these icons, because it changes Star Wars if you bring on these big names, these big Hollywood household names. I just don't think it's the best idea. And that's why I'm so on board with this now. If it is indeed this guy that ends up being our Han Solo, there were so many other names getting thrown out there, like Miles Teller. Who knows if he actually was. Actually, he did confirm it. He was saying that he had never seen Star Wars and blah, blah, blah. He went to watch them before he auditioned. That would have been terrible. As much as I love Miles Teller, I don't want someone like him to be Han Solo. But this Alden Ehrenreich guy, I'm on board to it, I'm open to it, and it makes me a little more excited for Han Solo. And last but not least, we have some comments from David Ayer talking about Suicide Squad, addressing, the current reshoots rumors. So I just want to read those off and talk about those real quick. Just this is addressing the reshoot rumors going around that, after Batman v Superman, Warner Brothers is now reacting and wanting to add in more humor and more fun to Suicide Squad, because those last two trailers didn't look fun enough, as if these characters aren't fun enough in their nature. Let's just read these comments that he has. If they don't like your movie, they tend to not want to invest in it. If they love your movie, they give you what you want. And I don't think there's any director that finishes a movie and says, wow, that's perfect. That's really what I want it to be. Every movie I've ever made, I wish I could go and grab some additional stuff, and that's exactly the chance I got this time. It's like getting a new car, but you get fancy rims and new stereo. And that's really important, that this is showing that they are confident in what David Ayer is doing with Suicide Squad, and it's more of is there anything else you would like to do to this movie? Yeah, please, I would like to go. There's these things, ideas that come while you're creating art. Some other inspirations come and more ideas come, but it maybe wasn't in the budget. And now they're allowing him to go back and do the things that he wanted to do to best service this movie. And Suicide Squad looks like a blast. It looks fun. It looks like it's going to have a lot of dark humor with a lot of great characters. We're going to get more Batman. This movie has everything going for it. So much talent behind the camera and in front of the camera. But more comments that he has. Well, the film has to work on two levels. It's got to work for the people that know and love the comics, and it's got to work for the people that don't know anything about the comics. I think it's going to work for both. I dug deep into this and really researched the canon, pulled storylines from a lot of different sources, characters from a lot of different sources, and it all works together really well. But I think for someone that doesn't know any of it, it works great too. It's dense. Let's just say it's really dense. There's a lot of imagery, there's a lot of nods, and there's a lot of Easter eggs. These are extremely reassuring comments, because while I do really enjoy Batman v Superman, I think that movie can be a little inaccessible for non-comic fans. Because people who do know DC stories, who know DC comics, and they really know the characters and events, storylines, that movie is awesome. It works really great. And as I can look at it from a little more objective standpoint as a general audience member, and I can see where people would have trouble following certain things, and a lot of that comes from cutting out an hour to an hour and a half of that movie, of the script, and trying to condense it into 2.5 hours. Really looking forward to the 3-hour cut, but that movie wasn't extremely accessible to non-comic fans, especially with the nightmare sequence, the Flash showing up, all that weird stuff, which worked for me and works for DC Comics fans. But a comic book movie needs to be accessible, not only to the fans, to the fanboys, to the fans of this DC comic lore. It needs to be accessible to everyone, and everyone seems to be on board with Suicide Squad from what we're getting. And all of these weird reactionary reports that Warner Brothers was trying to inject more fun and inject more humor, and this has already been debunked by the director and Captain Boomerang himself, Jai Courtney, that no, it's kind of doing more action, it's doing what I want to do to the movie. That does not mean we're doing humor, and that's just stupid. It's been debunked now by two primary sources on the movie. So there was just this weird biased journalism going against some of the DC films after Batman v Superman, which you can give it all the shit you want. It was kind of panned by critics, but it was received well among audiences, and it's making enough money. I'm hoping that Wonder Woman and Suicide Squad are what get DC back on track critically, because I think that's very necessary for the future of these movies to work. And by all accounts, Suicide Squad looks like it's going to be just that movie. It's going to get Warner Brothers back on track critically, which it really does need that. So I'm really looking forward to that. David Ayer's comments are very reassuring. But comment down below, what do you make of all of this news? Han Solo, Spider-Man, Kingsman, David Ayer, Suicide Squad. I want to know. Comment your thoughts down below. So anyways, guys, this has been your Movie Fix. Be sure to subscribe for more movie news, movie reviews, trailer breakdowns, reactions, blah, 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 if you like this sort of stuff. I'll see you guys on the next video.